Our friends at FanDuel have the Lions winning how many games?
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's good, everybody? Matt Derry with you. It is a Friday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day on a Friday, March the 28th and a Saturday, March 29th. Thanks for making us your first listen. Thank you for checking us out on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel or on Apple or on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you to our everydayers as well who subscribe and listen to the podcast or watch the podcast daily. Call of the day. We're not doing a call of the day today, which you can be a call of the day by going to speakpipe.com/Derry podcast page, because quite honestly, I didn't get that many submissions the last 48 hours, and I don't love any of them. So if you want to be our call of the day on Mock Draft Monday next week, let's get some good submissions in at speakpipe.com/Derry podcast page for Monday. Locked On Lions today brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Bradford Banta, former Lions tight end, former Lions long snapper, former Lions assistant special teams coach, and also featured on Fox 2 after some Lions games on their post-game show. Brad is going to join us coming up a little bit later on in the program. We'll get his thoughts on everything Lions related here, free agency, the draft, and all of that coming up momentarily. Was checking out FanDuel. As we talked about, FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NFL and of the Locked On Podcast Network and Locked On Lions. And I was looking at FanDuel today, and I was looking at regular season win totals for this season. How does it stack up? What do they think in the division for the Lions, Green Bay, Minnesota, and Chicago? And I found it interesting. The Lions over-under win total is 10.5. A year ago, it was at, I believe, 11.5. Lions won 15 games last year. 15. All right. Nobody expects, especially with this kind of schedule, and the road schedule is going to be brutal next season. Nobody expects. I mean, the Lions have to play the AFC North next year. They got to see Baltimore and Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Cleveland, whatever. But you know what I mean? It's going to be a difficult season next year from a scheduling perspective for the Lions. And they're also playing really, really good teams. I mean, I expect the Lions to be playing in Philadelphia in week 1. I do. The Lions over-under for wins is 10.5 wins, which would mean Vegas and FanDuel and everybody believes that the Lions will lose or will win 4.5. Or excuse me. Yes, 4.5 less games than they won this season. If the projection's 10.5, the team won 15 this past year, you do the math. Again, I'm not expecting this team to go 15-2. They lost Ben Johnson. They lost Aaron Glenn. They had an immaculate, unbelievable, fantabulous season this past year. And now here's Vegas chiming in that, hey, listen, we're looking at 10.5 wins for this team. Philadelphia is at 11.5 wins. If we're wanting to talk about other NFC teams, a team like Washington is at 9.5. Tampa Bay, 8.5. All right. As far as the division goes, Green Bay Packers come in second in the NFC North, according to FanDuel, with 9.5 wins. Chicago Bears, touchdown Bears, are tied with the Vikings at 8.5 wins. I think that is extremely high for Chicago. And I think for the Vikings, that might be right at the right number, because we don't know how J.J. McCarthy will look and what that quarterback situation will be completely in Minnesota. But giving the Lions 10.5 wins and setting that number, I think, is extremely fair for this year. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it should be higher because the team won 15 games last year. They have built this thing and grown it from 3 to 9 to 12 wins to 15. And now we're at a point where I don't think fans care, nor does the organization care, what the regular season record looks like. This franchise, this group, led by Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, have done a lot. They've been to an NFC championship, something previous regimes had not done in a long time. They've won the division twice. All right. They finished with the best record in the NFC. They finished with the best record in the NFL. They had the 1 seed. Now it's all about one thing, and that's getting to the Super Bowl. And if you win 9 games, 10 games, 11 games, but you still get into the tournament and you're a playoff team and maybe you're a wild card, maybe you don't win the division, but you go on a little bit of a run and you get to the NFC Championship game and maybe you're on the road somewhere. But as we know, the Lions this past season did not lose on the road. They won every road game they played. They were pretty darn good on the road. They won at Lambeau. They won at Minnesota. They won at San Francisco playing backups. Not playing backups, but, everybody wanted them to play the backups. It was not an easy game. Regardless, 10.5 wins for Detroit, I think, is accurate. And I would say that this could be a season where this club goes 11-6. Now, I got to go schedule game by game. I haven't even printed out this year's schedule yet. We don't even have the schedule yet on where they're sitting, where they're playing, who they open with. But I would say 10.5 is pretty spot on. And in this division, the Lions are still kings. They're at 10.5. Like I said, Green Bay 9.5, Chicago and Minnesota at 8.5. Team that's pretty comparable to the Lions, team like Baltimore, they're at 11.5 wins. I said it before, Philadelphia sits at 11.5 wins. We're not going to have a season again because this was an anomaly where the division champ, the NFC North, won 15, and the second place team had to go to the wild card with 14. That's not going to happen. And I think the NFC is actually better on paper right now this year than it was last year. So I'd love your thoughts on it, your comments on YouTube or wherever you hit me up on all social platforms. 10.5 wins, I think, is pretty good. And even though it's 4.5 less than last year, so what? This team might not be as good this year in the regular season. But I think what Brad Holmes is trying to do, and we're going to see it in the draft, is build a sustainable model, build a team that might not win as many games in the regular season, although you want to win every game. But they've got to get healthy, and they might just be a better team but win less games, if that makes sense. And it did help this year that, there were some games on the schedule that were cakewalks, and I don't see a lot of those this year. I don't. Bradford Banta going to join us coming up next. We always love the conversation with Brad. We will do that right here on a Friday edition of Locked On Lions. Brought to you today by our friends at FanDuel. We got a couple of Elite 8 teams in there, including Texas Tech. What a comeback last night against Arkansas. March Madness is here. We got games tonight, including Michigan and Michigan State both playing. And FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who is cutting down the nets. All right. Tonight, I love Michigan plus the points. Auburn's like a 9.5-point favorite. Dusty May's club is going to battle. Get on there. Put some shekels down on U of M. Hey, the FanDuel app is simple to use as well. When you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, as promised, we always love catching up with this guy, Bradford Banta, the former Lions long snapper, tight end, of course, assistant coach as well with the team. You see him on Fox 2 from time to time as well on some of the post games. Joins us today on this Friday Locked On Lions. Brad, good to see you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me today, man.
No problem, my friend. Thoughts first off on free agency, the Brad Holmes approach, and just overall kind of no home runs, no big splashes, but how did you kind of view the last few weeks?
Look, he makes the moves for a reason, and Brad does a good job. He knows what they want to do. He and Dan work together on forming this team, and I think they do an excellent job. And what they're doing is they're building behind the scenes. You talk about, DJ Reed, Lopez, Kyle Allen, Yaboa, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Yep.
Stewart, Yasin, Maddox, all these guys are being brought in to compete. And that's what you want. You have the mainstays, and what they've done is they've done a good job of kind of taking care of their own. Granted, there's a lot of guys that are on 1-year deals, but it's a prove it type deal. And what can you do to enhance our team, but also enhance yourself for the future of your career?
Losing Carlton Davis, let's start with that, but then gaining, like you said, DJ Reed. How do you view that kind of swap at corner?
It's how is he going to fit in? And I'm sure the Lions, I know the Lions have done their homework. And they believe they've vetted him, and they've had conversations with him, obviously, he and his agent, to give him, 3 years, $60 million. So I believe that Carlton can come in and make an immediate impact for what the Lions are wanting to offer. Because, you talk about the free agent moves. Okay, let's talk to coaching staff as well. You're going to have a new OC and you're going to have a new DC. So how are those guys going to call the game? I mean, let's just look on the offensive side of the ball. Johnny Morton, I believe, hasn't called plays since the Jets, whenever he was with the Jets.
2017, yep.
Yeah, 2017. And then, you have not only Johnny, but you also have Kelvin Shepard, who's going to be calling the defense. How much did he learn from AG? What's his spin going to be on the defense? And how is he going to game plan from week to week? And how is he going to get these group of guys together to play as one, as well as they did last year, with as many injuries as they had last year? Hopefully they can kick that injury bug. And at the end of the day, they're going to come in and, guns a-blazing and, prove, that they belong, which they do. They've proven that over the last couple of years.
It's interesting getting DJ Reed in here because he kind of was in the shadows of Sauce Gardner with the Jets. And I kind of been joking with any guests I've had on. I mean, how much Jets football have we watched here in Detroit the last couple of years? Not much, but he comes in and now, you get that kind of money. Like you said, 3 years, you got $48 million. You're like, all right, is he cornerback number one? But as a former player, when you get that kind of deal and you're going to a team where you're expected to be CB1, how does that work? And does that change this guy's mindset at all or no?
Look, he's a DB1. He's a cornerback 2. You telling me he doesn't have any moxie?
Yeah.
I think we'll be all right in that category.
Bradford Banta with us, of course, former Lion and former Lion assistant coach. Surprised at all on the Levi Onwuzurike front that he, first of all, stayed with the Lions on a 1-year deal, but also just got $5.5 million. Think that other teams were scared by the injuries, or maybe just the market kind of got flooded a little bit at his position? What did you see there?
Well, there's a couple factors that come into play. I mean, you look at the draft, it's going to be deep at that position. You look at the free agency, our team's going to be scared off by a neck injury? I would say so. But also it's going to be a prove-it deal because, I mean, really last season, correct me if I'm wrong, last season was the first season that he truly played the entire season. Am I right in saying that?
You are, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a 1-year prove it deal that he got, and he took it, and he's in a place that he knows. And he's in a place where he's comfortable. So why not take it and roll the dice? And if, obviously he's a betting man and he's betting on himself, and what a better person to bet on than yourself whenever you know that you can play. So go out and play, Detroit was willing to stick with him for these 4 years.
Yeah.
They were willing to stick with him and to get the most out of him, but he's also getting the most out of himself. And he proved that last year. But at the same time, he's looking to get a bigger and better contract if he can repeat or improve the performance from the 24 season.
It's interesting. And I skipped Kevin Zeitler, and I want to get to that in a second. But, the Onwuzurike situation, like you said, I mean, they need defensive linemen. You and I have talked about this. And I like what you said about they stuck with him. In this cap casualty day and this day of, hey, we're signing a guy to a 3-year deal, and after 1 year, they're already cutting him. It is interesting that he stuck around the whole time. I never really thought about that with all the injuries, and you're right, for a former second-round pick to never really flash that much, there was something they liked in him that he stayed all 4 years.
Yeah, no, it's an attribute to the front office, the personnel doing their homework, and then coordinating with the medical staff to be like, okay, what's the long-term prognosis when he got that surgery? It's just the communication throughout the building. And, I've been part of situations where, the communication was not free-flowing as it seems to be in Allen Park right now. And it doesn't make for a good situation, but now that it is free-flowing, there's open line of communication, and that's what you're going to find with your successful organizations is that from bottom to top, there's going to be open communication, and don't be afraid to express your opinion and concerns because they will be noted. Now it's up to the management to decide on what to do with those opinions that are voiced.
As somebody that played along the line, obviously did a lot of blocking at the tight end spot. Zeitler's out. And do you see this scenario where it's just, all right, do you think the plan, I guess, would be move Glasgow back to right guard where he was more successful 2 years ago, and Christian Mahogany is your left guard? Or do you see a situation where they're going to draft somebody at 28 or even at number 60 in the second round to push for one of those spots?
Look, they're all about creating competition, and they're going to take the best available at the position whenever they do draft. You got the 28th spot in the draft right now. Do they move up? Do they move down? I think it just depends on what happens at that moment. They're preparing for all these different scenarios. And whenever they have their mock drafts within the building, they'll do it with several different departments and to see how that goes, and people will voice their opinions. But to get back to your original question, is they are going to create competition at that position. Now, is somebody still out there in free agency? I don't know. Mahogany going into his second year, that's whenever a player makes his biggest jump. They obviously see something in him.
Sure.
To let Zeitler go, to the Titans, but there is going to be competition for that guard position. Whether it's left or right guard, I think we'll see. Time will play out, and I don't think enough has been said. Now, going back to the coaching staff, I don't think enough has been said about retaining Fraley as the offensive line coach. I mean, everybody talks about Stoutland, in Philadelphia, but I think Hank does an excellent job with the offensive line. Now, granted, you got some dudes on that offensive line.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's up to him to get them to gel, to come together, and for one purpose, and that is to just maul the front four on the defensive side of the ball.
One more thing, and then we'll get to the draft and some stuff in the offseason and certainly the division. But you mentioned before just the whole free agency focus and how this team kind of operates. a lot of it's going to come down to, like you said, the coaching staff and some of the additions, some of the subtractions, right? And the fact that there's just kind of just this theme and culture in place and identity that will not change no matter what coaches you put in there, right?
Yeah, that's the possibility. And that's whenever you bring these new coaches on board, that's the plan in place. I mean, you have the culture established, the new coaches that they've brought on board. I would bet that every coach that was brought on board has a previous working relationship with somebody that's on the coaching staff. Like I know Dan and Johnny work together.
Yep.
And then I'll be curious to see, like with Scotty Montgomery, taking over that wide receiver room with Antoine leaving. Scotty tutored Antoine whenever he was playing in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And, he instilled that type of work ethic in Antoine. So I don't look for any fall off in that room. And it's going to, how quickly are Johnny and Jared going to meld, as well as quickly as Ben and Goff did. So
yep.
What's going to be that plan moving forward? How much input is Jared going to have in the game plan week to week? How are those meetings going to go? So that's, all those behind the scenes meetings that take place that the public's not aware of. The relationship between the offensive coordinator and the quarterback is paramount. And I think over the last few years, that has proven to be true with the Detroit Lions.
Bradford Banta with us, the former Lion and former Lion assistant coach. We'll talk to him about the draft, some needs, and certainly the rest of the division and what he sees as we're a couple of weeks into free agency. We'll do that coming up next. Always great catching up with our friend Bradford Banta. You can see sometimes during the season on Fox 2 as well. The post-game shows, the Lions on a Friday at Locked On Lions. Matt Derry, Bradford Banta. All right, real fast on one other thing, because you've been in these locker rooms as both a coach and an assistant coach, as a player, I should say, too. These one-year deals, like the Lions have signed all these guys, even the guys they've retained. Tim Patrick was a one-year deal. Marcus Davenport, a one-year deal. What's that like in the room? Because, again, they could be without a job next year. They couldn't be in that room next year. Does it make a difference as opposed to maybe a locker room where you've got so many guys locked up long-term that maybe they get kind of fat and sassy?
You stop and think about it. General NFL contracts are all one-year contracts, unless
I guess
you have that guarantee.
Yeah.
There. So it's you're proving it day in and day out, week in, week out, year after year. The only thing that you don't have to do if you have a multi-year deal is go back to the bargaining table with the front office. That's the only thing you don't have to do. That means you're under contract with that particular team for the next year. Now, if you don't mind going through that process of just signing one-year deals, I believe Ndamukong did it how many years in a row?
Yeah, at
with,
the end. Yeah.
At the end. He was he was just a gun for hire, and he was looking to get a ring. So he's, it can be done. And in today's world, that seems to be more of the norm of guys just signing one-year deals and just betting on themselves, because in the end, that's really what a multi-year contract is, unless you get guaranteed money up front that extends over the life of the contract.
All right, so we're like 3 weeks away from the draft, and you said it best earlier, and I say it every day on the show. Brad Holmes is going to take the best available player at 28. I don't think he's drafting a running back or a quarterback at 28, or even a wide receiver, but you just never know with this guy. and he's an elite general manager. I mentioned that yesterday, but draft needs, you see all these shows sometimes they got the ticker at the bottom line. Dallas needs running back, this, that, Denver gets to Detroit. What are your biggest needs for this team? What do they have to address in a couple of weeks at least?
Well, I think when it comes to that point in the draft, at the 28th pick, if they see something and if they can get, if they have a chance to move up, how does that package come together?
Yeah.
And how far do you want to move up? They're going to be working the phones from the beginning of the draft until they pick. I can tell you, I can almost guarantee you that. The phone is going to be, they're going to be on the phone trying to work a deal to possibly move up. Now, how much are they going to have to give up? How much are they willing to give up to move up in the draft? Let's say it does happen. Then you're going to be like, okay, who's our best player? Who's the best player available? That's who they're going to take. As far as needs, they're going, look, the first thing that jumps out is an edge rusher.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I lobbed you a softball, Brad.
Yeah,
come on.
I mean, that's it. Yeah, I appreciate it, Matt. No, I really do. So you have to find somebody that compliments Aiden, and because it seems like Aiden's coming along with his rehab. It was about a month ago. There was video of him, running again. So in the way that he attacks the off season, like I know he does, he's going to be ready to go. But when it comes to draft, it's and you get in that first round, is there an edge that you're willing to take a shot on at the 28th pick if they stay there? That's the question that has to be asked. And that's the question that's going to be asked in the war room whenever, was it April 25th? I believe it is. So yeah. whenever the first day of the draft, first round.
We're getting close. It's exciting. No question about it. It's not look, it's great that they're picking 28. That means they had a good year last year. But it's not as fun back in the day when I was on here going, well, they take it at 2 or 7. It's
unfortunately I was part of those conversations in the war room.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'd make a Rod Wood joke about the war room, but I'll leave it. Final thing. The rest of the division.
Yes.
Green Bay, obviously the Bears have done all the splashy stuff. Green Bay, solid free agent. Minnesota it looks like, at least for now, is riding with JJ McCarthy. How do you view what you've seen from the rest of the division so far?
Look, the way I view things is to be the man, you got to beat the man. And Detroit still tops of the NFC North. So second, I believe the Packers. Third, Vikings. And then fourth is the Bears until they prove otherwise. Yes, I know they have Ben Johnson. Yes, I know they have a reworked staff. And we reworked their roster as well. JJ is going to have some lumps. This is going to be his first year playing. How much did he learn from last year? Knowing JJ, I know he's a student of the game. Mm-hmm. And I believe he's going to do well. Their staff is still in place, and I would believe that a majority of their roster, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is going to be returning. Jordan Love with the Packers, I think is going to continue to rise. He is an ascending player. How much did he learn from last year? I would imagine a whole bunch. And he's had another, he's getting another off season, the season a little bit. Let him stew over some of his decisions. Go back and watch last year's games and he's going to be able to look at some of the decisions that he made. I believe situationally aware. He's going to be a better player. Now, are they closing the gap with the Lions? Yeah, they are. I think all three teams have done a good job this offseason of closing the gap. Are they there yet? It remains to be seen. And that's going to be the interesting part. And that's why you tee it up every, let's see, now it's what, Thursday, possibly Friday, sometimes Saturday, and definitely Sunday and Monday. So, yeah. So we're getting that saturation of football that's going to be coming down the road pretty soon here.
That's right. And we had what? We had Christmas on a Wednesday last year. You had Wednesday games.
Wednesday. Yeah, pardon me.
Hey, let's just play every day. Hi, brother. Great to see you as always, and appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I really do appreciate you having me on.
Of course. Bradford Banta with us, the former Lion player, coach, and check him out on Fox 2 again during the season as well, and some of the post games on this Friday. Locked On Lions.